Today we're going to take a look at this John Deere. It starts really hot, and it seems like you have to sour the starter for a long time for it to catch. So that's obviously not correct. So today we're going to go through step by step, diagnose the trouble, and see if we can figure out why this tractor is taking so long to start. So if you stick around for 10 minutes, you'll have it down. So we'll start out by saying it doesn't matter which model tractor you have. It doesn't matter if it's an Alice Chalmers or a Massey Harris or John Deere or whatever. They're all pretty much the same as far as the ignition system. They're all going to look pretty similar. It also doesn't matter if it's negative ground, positive ground, 6 volts or 12 volts. The only thing you got to be cognizant of is when I tell you to hook the test light to your ground, it'll just depend on whether you've got 6 or 12 volts. So if you've got 6 like this one, the positive ground, you're going to put it on the positive terminal. But if it's like the Ford where it's 12 volt, it's going to be negative ground. So just be cognizant of that, and you should be good to go. So I'm going to show you a few different pieces of test gear to check this out. The first and probably most common piece you're going to maybe have already is a test light like this one. This one has a long cord on it, about 5 or 6 feet, and you want to take the other end of that, the clamp, and put that on the ground. So what I've done is I've connected the ground part of this to the positive terminal of the battery. This is positive ground, so I connected it to the ground, which is the positive terminal, which means if I connect this to a source of power, like for example terminal, this light will illuminate. So that's probably the most common thing you're going to find. The second thing is you can get these little spark plug testers. These are pretty cheap. And what this does is you take your plug wire off and you hook this end on your spark plug, and this has a long boot on it, so sometimes I'll even take these boots off just to make sure, because this isn't staying on the tractor, we're just using it to test. So these boots sometimes can cause trouble, so it's not a terrible thing to take the boot off just to test them. So what you can do is you put this over the spark plug, and then this goes into your cap. So you just take the plug wire off and connect it through like there's a spark plug wire, and then when you turn the tractor over, if you're getting power through your distributor, you'll see this flash. So I've got this connected to the ground. So with the other end of this connected to the ground, this is my negative terminal here. So putting that on there, I should see a light. Okay, so we have power through here. So the switch on, this is just on low charge, and you don't have to pull the starter to do this test through the coil, because you're not turning the motor over, and by turning the motor over, you're turning the distributor, so you're sending power through there. So we're not doing that. We're just checking the coil right now. So with it hooked up like that, the negative terminal comes first because it's negative ground, and that's this wire up here, which comes from the switch. So we'll touch on that, and you probably can't see it very well, but that does illuminate. Now let's see if it goes through the coil. We come out the other side, which would be right here. So we know that this wire is good. You can see, maybe you can see it. Hopefully you can. If not, if you don't have power here, take this wire and follow it to the positive terminal. Put it right on the positive stud. See if you got power there. If you don't, then your coil's bad. But I've got it all the way to here, so we know we're good there. The next thing you can do is you can take the cover off your cap, take your cap off, and you check the inside of that terminal. So the stud goes through. There's an insulator block. It's a plastic insulator block. You might have a little piece of fiber in there. And what that does is that insulates this terminal from the metal of your distributor. So we'll take the cap off, and then here's your rotor. Those only go on one way. You want to take a look at your rotor button, and see it's got some tarnish on it. I don't know if you can see that real well. Some people will take emery cloth, but I usually just take a piece of paper and a piece of, like shopping bag paper, and that's what I clean the points with too. I don't ever use sandpaper or anything that's gonna screw that up. So that rotor button, that could be a problem. You see how that's kind of burned on the end? So we'll take that, and then we'll look at our cap on the inside of that, because sometimes that's a problem. Sometimes these caps, the aftermarket ones, if you get the cheap ones on Amazon or eBay or whatever, they're not that great. They don't even fit on the right way. In fact, most of the Farmwell ones I bought that were cheap, they didn't fit. I ended up tossing them and going to the IH dealership and getting a good one. So I'd just be cognizant of that too, because if you get one of these cheap ones that doesn't fit on there right, you'll never get contact through it. But take a look at these electrodes here, and then your center. and those look pretty good. This cap's brand new, so it shouldn't be any trouble with that. Now this is a dust cover, and not all tractors have them. Sometimes they did, and sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they lost, but you're going to take that dust cover off. And then you look down in here and you'll see your points and your condenser, and that's the other side of this little guy right here. That's that stud you were checking. And I have power here. You can see that. It's kind of dim, but maybe you can see it. So I'm going to check here. I got it on the inside pretty good. Now I'm going to check with the points closed. You want to check there. Is it going through the points? Yeah, I got it there. So you can see it going to the other side. Yeah, so that's all good in there. So the points don't look too bad. You put this dust cover back on, you'll see the spots here like that. So put that back on pretty much the way you took it off. You do see this tab right here. I want that to set right in like that, and that way it doesn't turn. So we don't want to forget about the rotor button, but I'm gonna go ahead and clean that up. So I want you to do is I want you to be a troubleshooter. I don't want you to be a parts changer, because nobody has a lot of respect for parts changes. So we shine this all up and put that back on. That's only going to go on one way. You can see there's a notch there, and back like that. And we'll put the cap back on. It is possible, if you're not paying attention, to put this on backwards. So you want to make sure you put it on the same way you took it off. It should fit down on there snug. You hear it snap like that, and then we'll close this back one up. You can buy new ones of these, and that might be on my computer. It might be hard for you to see that. So turn the switch on, and again, make sure we're neutral. So she wanted to start. So we've tested everything out. And it could be, it was just that rotor button was dirty that was following us up. So if you screwed up and you do flood it at the bottom, you can drain the bowl. So you just loosen that up. Obviously you're going to shut your fuel off up here, because if you leave that open, you drain that, you're just going to drain your tank on the ground or whatever. So you're going to do this, shut your fuel off, drain the bowl, and then screw the bowl back in, the plug, drain, and then let your fuel back in, and then it should start. So I guess that's it for today. In probably one of these videos after I get hay and done, I gotta check the charging system on this, because it doesn't read anything on the ammeter, so I don't know if it's even working. So we'll get to that. But anyway, I appreciate you watching, and I'll talk to you next time.